Hello and welcome to this week's Ref Show. We've got the H squad, Hackett and Halsey, joining me to discuss many an issue. But have you noticed suddenly in some quarters referees are getting slightly different treatment? Change that song. It's now, you do know what you're doing. You do know what you're doing. You can sing it better than me. Come on. He thinks he's a singer.
No. I always get, you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, is that to me, is it? Right, okay. And you are fit to referee. Now, this isn't every club's fans that are doing this. I said something different on the show this week because the race is on for an extra place in next season's Europa League. This is because England's got an extra place in that. England came second in UEFA's fair play table, opening up a place which at the moment the leading contenders are West Ham, Everton and Burnley are all competing for that. I mean, first of all, chaps, I mean, good idea?
I think it's a good idea in that if it promotes fair play and good actions by players towards the referee, then yeah, it's another opportunity, if you like, to help to control players and make life a little bit easier for match officials. And it adds a different element to these end-of-season games as well, doesn't it? I don't know if fans are singing those songs, but Patrick Barclay, the esteemed journalist, was suggesting in a column that actually has been picked up by Alex Griffiths on YouAreTheRef.com, an entertaining article, is suggesting that fans of these clubs might consider that, Mark.
Yeah, I think it's quite funny, really, isn't it? You know, as I say, Keith, it's really good if they generate this extra place for being good, proactive towards referees. And wouldn't it be good if Burnley get relegated and they finish top of the Fair Play League and obviously in the Championship and playing in the Europa League? But and you can say they deserve it because I think they've done really well this season in the Premier. I think Sean Dyche has been a credit to the club and the way they've sort of conducted themselves on the field of play.
Credit to them in a relegation scrap.
Yeah, definitely.
Their sense of fair play hasn't gone out the window. This table isn't based entirely on how many yellow and red cards you pick up. It's also on other factors, Keith.
Yeah, I think that the Premier League, of course, appoint match delegates to the games. And the delegates are made up of a panel of former players, former managers. John Duncan comes to mind, Terry Hibbert, and a few others. John Bramall. And they will look at the game overall and measure how the players themselves react to the referee.
Yeah, I think it's based as well on positive play as well, isn't it? Attacking intentions or sort of.
Well, I'm sure that's the case. Yeah.
Well, let's look at those clubs that are competing, as it were, for this Europa League place. Everton being one of them. They had a 2-1 win at West Ham, where Kevin Friend was in charge, but somewhat of a blow to Everton there because they picked up 4 yellows, Mark. Yes,
unlike Everton, because I think Roberto's a footballing man. They're not a sort of a hatchet team, are they? They don't go out to hurt players, and he's brought in a good footballing side there, and I asked the question: Do these teams really want to play in the Europa League? And you look at Tottenham, and they're sort of saying we don't want to play in it. They're happy not to play in it because of what happens in the season, and these teams never take their top squads, do they?
Well, I think it's a good point because they've got to play in this playoff, haven't they? So they start around June, July. Yeah. It's a really early start. It doesn't give them much time to recover, and then they're straight into it. I know that clubs play pre-season tournaments, either in Asia or in Australia and America. I think some clubs are going this year. But nonetheless, I think this puts them straight into a competitive.
I mean, Burnley would love it, but you can imagine the strain it would put on their squad over the season. I suppose financially they could afford to absorb that strain if they were in. West Ham are competing for that Europa League, just won the yellow. I don't know, there was an early handball shout in that by Hammers. What was your view?
No, I think you've got to look at the distance, the close proximity of the players, and was it ball to hand, arm to ball, and
it wasn't clear cut, was it?
It wasn't clear cut, and to be fair to Kevin, I think Kevin's since, as I said before, since the Southampton Liverpool game at Southampton in February, I think he got heavily criticised for his performance in that game, and I think he's come on very well.
We've had lots positives to say actually about Kevin Friend in recent weeks, Keith. And Michael Oliver, Burnley, I mentioned Burnley and this extra place in Europe, closing off the Turf Moor season with a respectable 0-0 against Stoke. Just one yellow for Burnley in that particular instance, and a pretty incident-free game, I think, for Mr. Oliver.
Yeah, I think when these games take place, you know, once you've gained experience, you've had the top games, and he's had a run of top games, the confidence is high, and I've mentioned this in the past. I think there's still a shortfall in his performance. You know, I think that he switches off at times. I think his positioning at the moment is still a bit wayward. He's a fit lad, but he doesn't apply that all the time. And I think, you know, the top-class referees read the game well, anticipate well, and always find themselves in good positions. There's no better referee than Mike Dean. You know, you never see him really belting all over the field of play as though he's a rabbit in headlights. Yeah. His movement is conservative, but when the big decision comes, he's always in close proximity. And
that, for me, is where Michael's got to improve his game. He's a great talent. There's no doubt about Michael's a great talent, but he's got to eradicate. You know, to become a top referee, you make less mistakes. You don't make many mistakes, and he's got to eradicate the amount of key match errors he's got wrong this season. He's got a lot wrong this season, and also players dictate to a referee how you referee that game. You know, where it's going to be a nice, easy game, but also that comes within your accuracy and with your decision making, which, you know, a lot of referees with their decision making and accuracy is fallen short this season.
He's got to kick on. Next season is a big season for him because he's now got to move into that elite panel on UEFA to get the big Champions League games, and that's the target he needs to be setting himself and creating the foundation of consistency that gets him into that elite squad.
And that's eradicating those,
absolutely,
you know, getting those big decisions. Absolutely. You know, he's got to eradicate that from his game. He's getting too many wrong.
Week in, week out.
Changes that, you know, and it's all about, like Keith said, it's all about concentration, mental focus, and also the way he's coached and trained by the management team. That's a massive, massive difference to eradicating those key match errors.
Keith mentioned Mike Dean. I think you touched on him as well. Mike Dean and Mark Clattenburg. There's one thing I can guarantee here every week, nearly every week, is I haven't actually got any queries written down against either game that they refereed.
Well, I think Mike, in the game at Anfield, where only one yellow card was issued, I think Smalling...
Manchester United, Arsenal.
Man United, Arsenal, sorry. I thought that Smalling did actually grab Giroud and all him almost down to the ground. It was a tight call. He didn't give it.
Yeah, it's tough, and as you say, I mean, unlike Mike, I think sort of the latter part of the season, I think he's changed his game as well, because Mike is a no-nonsense referee. You know, he's not afraid to, you know, get the yellow card out, issue yellow cards, and there was challenges yesterday where you thought, I think early in the season, because remember Mike done the first encounter where I think Wiltshire was lucky to stay on with a sort of a, but you know, we elaborated on this show, but you know, he produced a lot of yellow cards, but you know, yesterday, as I said, there was a few challenges where perhaps earlier on in the season Mike would have produced yellow card, and yesterday he managed it, and perhaps he's thinking to himself, well, I'm not referring to this evaluation system, and what a big difference it made yesterday. Big difference.
He's a top class.
He's a top. He's a top class referee.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that, and it shows in his performance. And he's got the respect to the players.
Well, that counts for so much. I mean, Mark Clattenburg clearly has Swansea 2, Manchester City 4, another exemplary performance, it would seem. We've got the Championship playoff final, richest game in the whole season, coming up. Middlesbrough against Norwich. We're talking Monday lunchtime. The appointment might follow later today or tomorrow. Who should get it?
Well, I mean, look, let's just go back a few days to the semi-final second leg playoff. Bayern against Barcelona. An absolutely top draw performance from Clattenburg. So that should, in fact, nail him on for the game. But knowing the PGMOL and knowing their relationship with Clattenburg, that I am very suspicious about, because look, he's not had the big games at the beginning of the season. No. He's not being given, in my opinion, a fair crack of the whip for our top performing referee. And so they'll find a way of not giving him the game. They'll probably say, well, it's Middlesbrough, it's too close to Newcastle.
But I've been to Middlesbrough this season for one of their home games, and Mark Clattenburg was in charge of it. Actually, he infuriated the crowd.
Well, I'm just preempting.
Allowed a Blackburn equaliser.
I'm preempting the PJML. They'll find a way of not giving Mark Clattenburg this game.
We'll see what happens.
Well, as I say, Keith's right. I mean, he's been overlooked for the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
He is the best man available to do that game. He's been overlooked. And as I say, it's the richest game in the calendar season, the Championship playoff final. And as I say, Kalina thought he was outstanding on Tuesday. He's done the Olympics final. Yeah. He's done the Super Cup this year, and he's undoubtedly our best referee. And the amount of tweets I got on Tuesday about his performance was unbelievable.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the rest of the Premier League action and the refereeing performances after this break. Join us then.